Hello and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. My name is Thomas, back on the channel today with another very special video. Welcoming back Kevin Campbell to the channel. We're going to be talking all about Rafa Benitez, his appointment as Everton manager, what he has to do to succeed, and how he basically hit the ground running with this quite controversial appointment. So Kev, thanks for coming back on again. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thanks, Thomas. Good to be back on. And at last, we get to discuss the new manager. I think it was a really important decision by the board and the owner. And, I think it's one that, considering who they were looking at, not many have a resume like Rafa.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see that about, what he's achieved in the past, the kind of the success he has had. But just kind of starting off, I mean, it just so happens we're recording this video at the time pre-season started today. I don't know about you, Kevin. It's not quite settled with me. It doesn't quite look right. Rafa Benitez turned up at Finch Farm. What are your general thoughts? Just seeing it all. I mean, we know about his managerial history. We know how successful he's been. It is still it's going to take time to get used to.
Yeah, listen. For the Blues, I know it's difficult. You don't really see this ever happen, do you? Where a manager has managed the other lot across Stanley Park. But that was a long time ago. There's a lot of water under that bridge, Thomas, to be honest with you. And Rafa is a very good manager in his own right. Like I mentioned before about the resume, he's got a resume, not many would love to have half of his resume. So I know it's going to be a little bit difficult for some Blues to accept, but I think the owner has put money where his mouth is. I think the owner has assessed. It's taken a bit longer than I'm sure a lot of Blues would have liked, but he's taken his time to make this decision. So I think Rafa Benitez is a very safe pair of hands, and he's never left Merseyside, has he? His family's never left Merseyside, so he gets it. He gets it, and sometimes that's what the Everton fans worry about. Does will the incoming manager get the football club? Obviously, Rafa Benitez gets the football club.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned his resume a lot as well. I think that's clearly something that had a big impact on Mashiri. We've seen in a lot of rumours, I think it was on the website as well, in the interview, that Rafa Benitez really impressed in his interview compared to the other, like we were looking at Nuno Espirito Santo. He was clearly interviewed by the club, but clearly whatever Benitez said, maybe his plan for, going forward this season, the next few seasons, clearly impressed Mashiri enough to put those fan concerns to the side and think this is the man that is going to lead us to success. And we know about his success in the past. Okay, the past few years, he did a good job at Newcastle. Of course, didn't win anything, but did a good job. Went to China, didn't quite work out there. So there are going to be plenty of reservations. But before we get into kind of the football inside of it, the tactics, how it is going to be important, what do you think it's going to take immediately? I mean, for the first half of the season, for this first season in general, what's it going to take to get those Everton fans on side who maybe aren't as accepting of the appointment of a former Liverpool manager?
Well, one thing I do know, whenever anybody opposes you in football, get those W's, get those wins. You start winning games, all of a sudden the doubters start to come on side. And it will never change in football. Look, Carlo Ancelotti came in, done a decent job, but he's not there now. We need somebody else to come in and carry that team, carry that project forward. Now, Rafa Benitez, with a few wins under his belt, he's one manager who nobody could really question. The question is only because really he's managed the other lot on the other side.
Yeah.
So with a few wins, maybe a derby win would be nice, wouldn't it? That would be really good for banter. But you got to get them wins. I think there's some winnable games at the start of the season, so Everton have to really get into win mode and get winning.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. It's a strong start of the season, pushing up towards Europe, early on, and I think you will win the fans. But that can kind of be a two-edged sword, really, that if he doesn't start getting those wins, do you think that's really going to have an adverse effect on him? Because we've seen managers being given time, be given patience, but the fact he has those links, the fact that some fans still have reservations, if he doesn't hit the ground running, if he doesn't have a particularly successful first season, do you think he's going to be rewarded the same patience as Ancelotti in theory was? Finishing 12th and 10th wasn't good enough. Do you think he's actually going to get that same amount of time?
Well, maybe. Look, the fact of the matter is, Thomas, the reservations are there from day one. So whether he has a okay first season, not a good season, the reservations are still going to be there. What Rafa Benitez has to do, he has to show the fan base that he's building something. I think the squad are at a certain spot right now. With 8 games to go, Everton, Football Club could have qualified for the Champions League. It fell away. And how many opportunities did Everton get to be in that pole position?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they couldn't get over the line. I think things like that are going to make the difference. Rafa Benitez is a superb tactician, and I'm sure we're gonna cover that anyway. But little things like that, getting over the line, getting that home form right, getting the away form right, being tough to beat, all these little things, looking a lot more solid as a team. I think that's going to be really important moving forward. And if Rafa Benitez could do that, I think one thing I do know about the Evertonians, if you're doing a job, they will back you. Whether they dislike you or not, if you're doing the job, they will back you. So, that's what he has to do. He has to get the club moving and get the project back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And you mentioned tactics there. We can get right into that now. It is, I think we all know it's going to be a similar style to Ancelotti, really. We've seen Benitez in the past. We know what he was like at Newcastle only a couple of years ago. We know that kind of setup that he does play. Do you think that's really going to benefit the squad because he does like that compact defensive side of the game and then work on his counter-attack? Do you think that's really going to benefit us now? Because we've had a lot of chopping and changing of managers in the past 5 or 6 years. We've had managers come in who want to play free flow and attacking, dominating possession football. All of a sudden, then we've got Sam Allardyce, who we know we don't have to go into that again. Ancelotti comes in. He also likes to play that defensive style. Are we finally getting a bit of tactical continuity that is actually going to help out the squad and not have to have such a pre-season of drastic change, really, in what we're working on?
Yeah, I think so. I think Rafa Benitez is proven a defensive mastermind at times. He's very good tactically. You might see players who, weren't really doing so well under the previous regime actually stepping up under Rafa Benitez. Just different voice, asked to do different things. And it can happen. One thing we do know, Everton's squad is pretty good. They do need a few bits and pieces here and there, but the majority of the squad are pretty good. So if you can add to that squad, I think Everton got a good chance, a really good chance this season. They know what it's about. Some of the foreign players are back in now, and they're with 1 year under their belt in the Premier League. That's really important, and they've got a manager who's capable of setting them up in the right way. I think that's going to be key as well. I just think Rafa Benitez, at this moment in time, is a real steady pair of hands, and he could get probably more out of these players than some of the other managers who got linked. So, I think it could be a really good appointment.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is really going to help having that continuity. We've had players, obviously, we had a good summer transfer window last year. Those players they've had that year to settle in. Should be all right. But, I mean, going aside from, do we like that defensive style? Do we not? I mean, we know any style can work at any given time. And you said we got a very good squad. Do you think we do have those players to carry on with that style? Because I think at the start of last season especially, we started to have those defensive frailties before Ancelotti really started to kind of put the rearguard action on. We saw that much more compact style. So do you think we currently have the squad to match that specific tactical style, or do we need maybe some defensive improvements in the summer that might be more used to that playing maybe like a 5 at the back, for example?
Well, you could always improve. That's for sure. We could, the club and the squad can always be improved. I think defensively there are probably a couple of spots where centre half probably could do with another centre half, and right back. Seamus Coleman has been such a stalwart, but he needs a bit of help now. There's a lot of games, back-to-backs and stuff like that, where he needs a bit of help to preserve him. But I think it's offensively through midfield and the wide areas is where Everton really need to get their game in order. Because once you're on the counter-attack, when you're sitting deep and you're bringing teams onto you, once you turn that ball over, you've got to have the legs to be able to hurt the opposition in multiple ways. You can't just rely on Calvert-Lewin. You can't just rely on Richarlison. There has to be more. Has to be more. So, Rafa Benitez is very cute at that, and his tactical awareness, I'm sure he's going to recognise that, as well as Richarlison. I think going to the Olympics as well is going to prove that there's going to be a need to get maybe one or two more offensive players into that squad.
Yeah, certainly, and especially if we consider, potential players that might move on. Where do you see James Rodriguez's future now? Because he had a patchy season when he was in the team. He was in excellent form, very good player, very important for us. Ancelotti's gone. We haven't got European football. Do you see him staying? And if you don't, then surely right wing is then one of our main priorities, because we've basically got no one left there if he does leave.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think he came because Carlo Ancelotti was at the football club. And, I wouldn't put it past him to want to move on. There's quite a few clubs who would covet him. And, it was an experiment that worked out okay. But once the manager goes, the trap door opens, doesn't it? And I could see him leaving. But I think that opens up a great opportunity to get another wide man. Somebody who, in that engine room that I mentioned in the midfield, I think that was one of the strong points of the team last season, when everybody's fit. But somebody else who can beat somebody on the outside, another goal threat. Because just relying on Calvert-Lewin, and when Calvert-Lewin don't do it, with Richarlison trying to carry, it's not enough. There needs to be more goal threats.
Yeah, I completely agree. And something that there might be an added challenge to Rafa Benitez at the start is this pre-season that we do have, because we've got players still on international duty, the likes of Richarlison, Yerry Mina at the Copa America. We've still got, all the English lads in the World Cup. As you mentioned, Richarlison's going to go to the Olympics. So, you had a brilliant career, but how much of an impact does that have on a pre-season? If you've got players coming back at different times, different levels of fitness, does that have an impact on the rest of the squad? Maybe there's less cohesion kind of for those first few games of the season, especially if you don't have that kind of rigorous schedule for everyone right from the start.
You're talking about, your top players, aren't you? You're talking about the top players. The top players know how to play, and, they're flexible. Whatever the manager wants, you would think that they'll be able to do it because they're international players, etc. But you know what? What an opportunity for somebody who is looking to make a name for themselves. That's what I see. As a young player, when I was coming through, if there was lads away on international duty and not being back, it's a great opportunity for some of the younger players, or some of the players who maybe weren't being regulars in the team, or, a new player coming in. What a fantastic opportunity to make a name for yourself, to hit the ground running and be ready. I think that's the key, because if you're doing the business in pre-season and then the international boys are coming back slowly but surely, maybe the manager will go with you as opposed to them, because he wants them to be right. So I just see it as a great opportunity for some of the other players.
Yeah, I completely agree. Are there any names you particularly got in mind? We've had a few loan players, the likes of Branthwaite, Ellis Sims were out on loan, Anthony Gordon. Another name that springs to mind, Gbamin, is actually going to have his first pre-season at the club without either being injured or come back late. Are they the kind of names you're thinking about that might have an impact in pre-season that could give them something?
You have to look at all the names. Tom Davies as well, there were times where he wasn't in the side. There were times where he got in the side that he done really well. I think he stepped up a level under Carlo Ancelotti, to be honest with you. So Rafa Benitez is going to have to see everybody. He's going to have to give everybody that opportunity to show themselves. And there are spaces up for grabs. It's a new manager. It's a new regime. And, look, it's time to stake your claim, put your hat in the ring and perform. But I think some of the young lads, Ellis Sims done a great job at Blackpool. And he's going to want to prove himself and want to be in the squad. So I think loads of those younger players have an opportunity. And even some of the under-23s who I'm sure Rafa Benitez likes to develop might just, come through into the first team squad and surprise someone.
Yeah, absolutely. As much as I have my reservations at first, I do think it is quite an exciting summer now coming up, purely because we've got that tactical continuity. Benitez, there's been a lot said about that, his meticulous nature. He's got his own personal database on all of the players. Every manager is meticulous. They all have an attention to detail, of course, but Rafa Benitez, he does, from what we've seen in the newspapers, he does seem to have that extra commitment. We've heard rumours about him, sleeping at training grounds, coming back to his hotel late when he was at Napoli. is that really going to have a really good impact on the squad? I mean, I can't see it having a negative impact, but how much of a significant impact does it have if he is that specific? He does have that attention to detail, that he lives and breathes football at the end of the day. That is what it seems like.
And he's going to demand that from the players. Thomas, one thing you can guarantee, and sometimes, you know, the fans are a good gauge. The fans knew in previous managers that the managers hadn't been successful.
Yeah.
Then Carlo Ancelotti came to the club. We couldn't question Carlo Ancelotti. He's got the resume. He's proven it. He's done it. Rafa Benitez has proven it and done it. So that's one thing you can't be questioned. The question is, you know, he's managed the other lot across the Stanley Park. Not that he can't do the job. Not that he's not committed to football. Not that he can't improve players, etc. It's just the fact that there's that tie across Stanley Park. So for me, I think the fact that Rafa Benitez is at Everton, he's happy to manage Everton Football Club. He's happy to put the work in. And the key is not just put the work in, but his way of doing things has proven to be successful because of his resume. So here's another proven manager to come in to keep the Everton train on the track. I think it's important. And that is continuity as well. One manager to the next manager who's been successful. You know, I just hope he gets some funds and he can bring in a couple of quality players to help at the top end of the pitch.
Yeah, definitely. And that brings me to kind of my last couple of questions. First of all, this is probably one of the more positive interviews that I've done about Rafa Benitez. There has been a lot of reservations. Do you genuinely see this as an exciting time for Everton fans coming forward?
I really do. Thomas, I really do. You know, look, it's easy to be a doom and gloom merchant. It's easy to think, oh, you know, the sky's falling. But one thing we do know, Everton Football Club, huge club. Everton Football Club, with 8 games to go, could have qualified for the Champions League. And that's coming from virtually nowhere the season previous. So all of a sudden there's a manager there. He's going to be looking. He's got how many internationals out on international duty? You know, he's got a fit young squad. Needs a little bit of surgery, but it always needed a bit of surgery under Carlo Ancelotti. It was always going to be a process. And you've got a manager who knows tactically he can get it right. He knows the Premier League. I think it's an exciting time for Everton. Definitely it is. And I'm not going to go down that route of doom and gloom. We've seen too many years of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think going in with that optimistic mindset into the season is definitely going to help, especially with fans. Obviously, the Prime Minister's just announced before, stadiums are going to be fully packed again. Everyone's going to be back. It's going to be a good time. Fans have been gone for so long. I do hope that the first time we have a full Goodison Park, it's not a negative atmosphere. I really don't think it will be. I think the majority, you know, will get behind the manager. There will be a few boos, I'm sure, on the first home game of the season, but it does seem like an exciting time for myself. And my final question really is, what are your predictions for the year coming up? Where do you think we can finish with this squad and this manager and the potential additions?
Well, I think Everton definitely have to be looking at Europe. That's for sure. A European spot. Messed up last season too many times. Had the opportunity to kick on. And do you know what? I'll be honest with you, Thomas. I think it was the fact that there was no fans at Goodison. Because Everton's home form was atrocious. You know, you win a few of those games at home and you're right up there challenging for the top 4. So I think Europe is a really good gauge. You know, top 6, top 7. To be able to gauge that. Kind of fell away at the end of last season, but everyone's a little bit more battle-hardened now. And you add to the team going forward, I think Europe could be a really good gauge for Everton this season. I'd love it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. European football should be the end. But that brings us to the end, Kev. Thanks for coming on again.
Thanks, Thomas. Look, really appreciate it. And I hope everybody enjoys the season and enjoys being back at Goodison.
Yeah, it's always an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. And thank you all very much for watching. Be sure to let us know everything we've thought about down in the comments below. Seems like an exciting time. We can't get behind the manager. Let's see what signings we make. Get all the players back. Hit the ground running at the start of the season. And European football is a genuine, real possibility. Once again, after the doom and gloom of Ancelotti leaving, it's not all the end of the world. And let's just get into the season now. So thank you all very much for watching. And join us next time on the Toffee Blues.